So with that, let's just dive right in.
Yeah.
On the agenda today, we are going to be briefly talking about stages. Lyndon's session tomorrow is going to be doing a lot more of a deep dive. So if you haven't registered and still can, I would make sure you do that. From there, we're talking about setting your communication expectations. How often are we going to be following up with that? From there, we're going to dive into turn your expectations into actionable steps. Wow, hard. Utilizing smart lists. And then what happens if you only focus on where the money is. And then how to build automated lead management. And then how it all wraps together. So with that, let's dive. Oh, we're not saying thank you yet. With that, let's dive in. So first thing we're going to be talking about is stages. So how you get to your stages is going over to the admin section and then selecting stages. Pretty easy. Now, what I always recommend to every single one of my customers that I have the opportunity to work with is, yes, we have automatic stages set up for you in Follow-Up Boss. And that's not these, actually. But with that, you all have a different style of how you do business. Your brains all work differently. So set it up what makes the most sense for you and your team, okay? We are all different. We all, some people are heavy working their sphere of influence. So your stages might look a little different than somebody who is strictly working Zillow leads, okay? So again, sit down, and it's so beyond important. If I can have you guys walk away with one thing, please make sure every agent on your team has a list of what stage means what, okay? Every agent on your team should have access to the definitions of every stage. So that way, if they have somebody where they're like, I'm kind of in between, they can look at the sheet and they can know, because stages are really, really, really huge when it comes to the organization of your entire CRM, okay? From there, we talk about defining, what are our communication expectations for stages? So that's where we really start to get into smart lists. If you want to head over to the smart list section for me, Jeremy. How many of you in this room know what a smart list is? Just by a show of hands. Okay, so we're kind of 50-50. A smart list is essentially just a safe search that tells you who you're following up with and why you're following up with them. And so if we go and we take a look at the hot 2 times a week smart list, super easy. On the left, well, your guys' right, you're gonna see who am I following up with, why am I following up with them, okay? So very simple, very easy, and it helps you. Again, the system's gonna automatically do it for you. After you reach out to somebody on this list or you update their stage, they are no longer going to be on this list actively. But I wanna see how many of you guys are utilizing smart lists not only for your active inbound new leads from your lead providers, but who is utilizing smart list for your past clients and sphere of influence? Nice, okay. Good for you guys who are. Let's talk about ways you can utilize it for those who aren't. This is a huge aspect, you guys. A lot of us in this market right now, I'm sure, are feeling like, okay, what can I be doing more of? What can I be doing more of? Your past clients in your sphere of influence are low-hanging fruit. In all reality, they like you, they already know you, so you want to get in front of them, you want to be communicating with them, because your past clients in sphere of influence, yes, it's a stage, but they should only be in that stage for so long, okay? So at some point, they should be a hot prospect. They should be an active client. But we also want to make sure we're tracking our past clients, right? So if we come over to create a new list, and I'm just going to step in here. So if we come in here and create a new list, this is something I would recommend every single person in this room do if you have not done this already. So you're going to come in and you're going to search by stage, and we are going to include everybody that is in the past client stage, okay? So if I come here and select all my past clients, you want to make sure you are tagging these people as past clients as well, okay? Because again, they are not just past clients, they should one day be, again, an active client. So, but you still want to know that they're a past client for outreach purposes. So we come in, we add the tag, and we'd come in and say, okay, I want to tag them as a past client, and here we go. Add the tags. Super simple, super easy. So now, if you guys are going to be utilizing Follow Up Boss for newsletters, utilizing Smart Lists to send marketing emails out, especially when it comes to those who utilize, you do a lot of events and those kinds of things. Well, even if your past client is in the hot prospect stage, you'll still be able to find all your past clients by tagging them. So again, we are able to easily follow up with not only our new leads that are coming in to Follow Up Boss through the different smart lists, we are also able to work our past clients in sphere of influence. Quick pro tip, I myself, when I was an agent, did not have the opportunity to use Follow Up Boss, and let me tell you, I probably left around 150 GCI in my database because I wasn't utilizing my system, and my system wasn't easy to use. Follow Up Boss is, okay? One of the biggest things you can do in here is utilize it for calling lists. Let's be honest, we all like going where the money is. Working leads, not as fun, because you have to do a lot of research typically. Again, this takes that away. Okay, everybody in here is a hot prospect, and I'm calling them because it's been more than 3 days since I last communicated with them. Awesome. All you have to do is select everybody, and you can start a calling list, and it will rip through all of these calls very easily. It makes follow-up simple, and that's the best part about Smart List. My last tidbit I'll leave you guys with is your closing anniversary smart list. If you do not have this, go and make it. It is the easiest smart list to make. All you have to go off of is the custom field, either whether you have it marked as close date or closing anniversary. Set it for 7 days. Their closing anniversary is in the next 7 days, okay? Reason being is because this is the easiest low-hanging fruit you can have for your past clients and sphere of influence. Even if you weren't their agent, guys, track their home anniversary, because every Monday we should be time blocking out an hour to create a CMA, and then you are sending it, whether you want to email it or you want to print it out, personalize it, write a handwritten note, but send that CMA out. Right now, so many people don't realize how much equity they have in their homes, and all they know is fear. They're afraid of the market. They're afraid of what's going on. Take that fear away and give them knowledge. Knowledge and facts is the only way you are going to help your clients overcome that fear. So with that, we're utilizing Smart Lists not only for our current leads, but also, yes, and then we are making sure, if we don't already have it, a closing anniversary Smart List. Okay, so with all of that being said, though, is the question, what do I do if, I've been reaching out to somebody that's in the lead stage for the last 12 days every day? Now what? Do I just leave them in the lead stage? What do I do? Well, my dear friend Jeremy over here is going to talk with you guys about how to automate that and make it simple so the system does the work for you.
Right on. Thank you, Katie. Let's go back and talk about stages really quick. So when you come up with that list and of the definitions for your team, the communication expectation that you list here, that you apply to your smart list, can also be used to automate the system. And the more you use Follow-Up Boss calling and texting, for those of you who aren't using our calling and texting as robustly as others, that adds efficiency to your system. And any misgivings or thoughts that you have about why you're not using that, I can give you answers why you should. But this is the best one, because we know when you're making calls and texts if you're using our phone numbers, and we can simply take that information and make it work for you. So the stages and the communication expectations attached to these stages, this is how it would work. So when a lead comes in, an action plan can be applied. Now, who here who here has applied an action plan to a new lead? All right, cool. Did you know that the action plans do not just have to be communication, that they have other steps inside? In fact, we call them action plans because they can take action, because they control processes. Sometimes that process is an email campaign. but sometimes you can do a lot more. So for instance, if we've got on our Zumper leads, this action plan that's applied here, it's called new lead, and I'll show you this in just a second. The action plan does not just send out communication. I mean, it does, but it also is a timer. So how long is a new lead a fresh lead? It differs from market to market. I'm gonna average it out at like 10 days. So after 10 days, because after 10 days, it's not worth your extra time to keep calling that person over and over again on a daily basis, or even frequently. If they haven't replied to you, Follow Up Boss can track that, depending, if you're using our calling and texting, we can track it very specifically. An action plan can be set to automatically pause if the lead responds. So no matter what this action plan does, if my customer calls me back, texts me back, emails me back, or I call them and I'm on the phone for 2.5 minutes, this action plan will not go any further without you telling it to. So if someone doesn't call you back, if they don't reply in the first 10 days, you can automatically set an action to happen on day 11. So this action plan sends the initial text message and the first few emails to try to engage. But on day 11, it says, if we haven't heard back, which is what it's set to do up here, then we're gonna go ahead and change the stage. We're gonna change it in this model to cold. Because using a cold nurture plan for someone you don't engage with is pretty much as effective as using one that's tailored to someone you didn't connect with. So this action plan changes the stage. Now this is where automations come in. Automations trigger action plans and individual actions based on things like the stage being changed. So if you're changing the stage to see cold, then we can automatically put them in. That does two different things. First of all, the automation of the stage being changed starts a new action plan. And this is for engaging these folks. You're nurturing, you're engaging someone who's hasn't been responsive. The action plan itself, I'm going to show you that in just a second, but basically the other thing that it does is it also moves the person automatically to a smart list where the communication expectation changes. So you don't want to give up on a lead that you've invested in completely, but you definitely don't want to keep calling on a daily basis. So when you've got a, let's see, I may not have created that, but anyway, if we looked for cold leads, we can have that in nurture. Okay, so I messed up. But anyway, if we're looking for someone in that cold stage, they're going to appear on this smart list based on the expectation. So if you have a nurture list for your colds, the communication expectation could be every 3 weeks, every month and a half, whatever works for you, what your experience tells you is going to work and that not only works to help engage, but helps you fit that into your day. Because you still have to make those extra calls once in a while to engage with those folks that you didn't get around to the first time. So, back to the automation. The automation works off the stage being changed and the action plan starts. This action plan goes for a lot longer. The first one went for 10 days, it changed things on day 11. This one goes for 9 months. And after 9 months, at the end, after it goes for this long, we're saying, okay, we need to change our strategy again. Follow Up Boss is gonna help you do this. And basically, again, we're gonna add a tag. And we're gonna add this tag, and it's gonna be called Final Call. The tag of Final Call is more effective than making a task for final calls. If you use tasks in Follow Up Boss heavily, you can create a task instead of a tag. But since we're talking about smart lists, want you to use a smart list with the tag. And so this list would populate with everyone who gets that tag, Final Call. And it's going to be right here, and if you have more than one person, you call through this list, that's the last call for that person. And if they still don't reply, the action plan is going to go to the next step, and it's going to change the stage to unresponsive. And that does something, that gets automated too. So, this is the automation for what goes on there. The stage gets changed to unresponsive, and we're going to just simply pick that lead up, Now, if you're a solo agent, Janelle talked about ponds at the first one. This is kind of recommended for if you're working in a team or even if you have more than a couple of people. Move these leads that you didn't convert in 9 months of trying to a pond. Get them off your active screens so you can focus on the opportunities that you still have to work on. A pond can work like a storage facility, a filing cabinet. You still want these leads in your system. You invested in them, you don't want to throw them away. But you also don't want to see them all the time. You don't want to see your smart list stack up to hundreds and hundreds of people. You want them to be as short as possible to get your work done. So in this particular case, we're keeping your database organized and making your work efficient. So when they go into the pond, and the pond is not a dead space. Things can still happen in the pond. So the next automation is going to look for folks who have new activity in the pond. So we're looking for any type of new activity, a brand new inquiry, a saved or viewed property from a website or from a lead gen site. And in this particular case, where you've got conditions in place to just look for these pond leads, you can do this with any lead, but this is good. And in this particular case, if there is new activity on someone in that pond, we're going to reassign the lead back out to myself or to a teammate and start a new action plan that's going to kind of start the cycle back over again. The action plan here also creates some initial communication. And, oops, sorry. There it is. And then this action plan changes the stage back to lead. If they're refreshed, treat them like a new lead. Call them every day, but don't call them for as long, right? And I'm adding a tag of refreshed, which keeps it in a different smart list. That smart list may have a different communication expectation, and that's what I designed. In this particular case, you don't need to call a refreshed lead every day. We have Well, anyway, the smart list would basically, you can set a different communication expectation. So let's say you call that person who's refreshed every 2 days or 3 days instead of every day. That way you're fitting it into your bandwidth, what you can do in the space of a day, but also making the best of those opportunities. And then when the lead ages out again without any reply, the action plan is again going to help us without us having to do anything. So at the end of, this is on day 14, basically, we're going to add a tag, day 13, another tag that goes into a final call smart list and basically says, these are the people you need to call today at that last call in to see if you can get them. But then I have this one set for 2 days after that to give yourself 2 days of extra time to see if that person responds. It goes back to unresponsive, which triggers the automation we looked at before, which puts them back in the pond and basically puts them back in a place where they're going to get monitored for any of that new activity, which would refresh them again. So in this particular case, so this is 3 action plans and 3 simple automations that you can use to basically automate the system to do stuff with the people you haven't talked to, who didn't convert. And you're not throwing them away, you're not ignoring them, the system's doing it for you. And this is why, so again, you don't want to focus just where the money is, because the money could be here too. You're mining your database constantly with a little bit of automation and action plans put into place. That's basically it.
Yeah, question.
So what about if the lead comes back through another source, or the source, even the source that they originally came from? Have they thought about, I have some things set up, it doesn't work all that great, it's a little fumbly. Looks like you have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, so if you're getting natural, like organic new activity, like if they submit a new inquiry and we have notifications built into FaultBoss already that tells you if there's new activity on a lead that you're assigned. So yes, you can do something similar there, but ultimately, if they show new activity, that's a job for Depending on the stage, you want to have maybe a smart list set up for recent activity. Yeah, here we go. So these folks are recent web activity that aren't in the pond. They're not being monitored after they're stale. These are just...
But I was referring to like a Realtor.com lead that comes back in as a Realtor.com lead a month later.
Oh, okay. So if someone's already in your database and they came in through your website, but then they go on Realtor.com, that's new activity for an existing lead, and that will turn on the automation that I showed about the new inquiry. Or if they're still like in your active list, they're not in the pond, they're just going to, then there's a benefit there for having a smart list that just shows you recently active folks, which you can pull up on your phone. You can actually see your website activity in your mobile app and make use of it.
Yeah, next question.
Yes. Are you going to ever update using custom fields for automations? Does that make sense, or do you have another workaround?
Well, I mean, it depends what you're storing in custom fields. Custom fields are already conditions in automation, so as long as you have another trigger, the custom fields can still help you control who's getting that automation and doing something with it. We have lots of plans regarding automations and lots of thoughts on where we're going to go. We may not be going there next, but we might get there someday.
Yep.
So would these work with Real Scout activity? Because then that's not a website. But for example, a lot of our buyers are on Real Scout. We view their activities, and it's partially integrated with Follow-Up Boss. But am I able to do this just with Real Scout activity?
So with Real Scout, and I apologize that I'm going to be asking this question, do you guys have the pixel on the back end of Real Scout still?
I'm not sure. They're integrated using the integration pixel between the two companies. So.
Okay, then it should be showing up in your recently active. If you have the pixel there, it should be showing up in your recent activity.
And I'm able to do this, essentially. And all the automations are based on stage changes only.
So that's the easiest way to do it. Now, if you want to get really complicated and your team has really strong SOPs, standard operating procedures, sure, you could base it off of tags and those kinds of things. But again, stage is easier because we look at, okay, while you guys, as a lot of you are the primary users, the admins, the owners, you are able to do a lot of the back end work. You've had the training, or you're in the training, or you're working on getting the training with us CSMs. We have to remember your team, when we go through the team training, or your agents who, the most they've watched is webinars, they don't understand the automations. They don't understand the action plans. And so again, it's super important that you sit down and have strong SOPs in place of saying, okay, now remember team, if you put somebody in unresponsive, they are going to go to the pond. So another thing though is if a lot of you are worried about, and you say, well, Katie, a lot of our team has their personal database in there and they still are gonna move them to unresponsive. That's why in our automations, we have the ability to add filters. So if we came into the lead management one, and it was the step to reassign them to the pond, well, we can add a condition that the tags exclude any that have the tag sphere.
Or past client.
So again, that is why it's so beyond important that you not only tag your sphere and past client, or you not only update their stage, but you tag them, because we can then create filters so no matter what, anybody who's labeled as past client and sphere, even if they're unresponsive, like let's say you went to a listing appointment and then they ghost you and you're like, okay, they're unresponsive, I gotta update their stage, they still won't get reassigned to that pond. Does that make sense? Okay.
Regarding the tag, so is it possible to have it where only the admin can make the tags? Because what we've had in the past is, for example, Sphere, we'll put the only tag that we want used for sphere is sphere of influence. And somehow, some way, even though we've taught the agents, they'll just put sphere or they'll put SOI. And so therefore the automations aren't working like they should. So is there a way to just have the admin group be the only ones who can add tags? Because unfortunately agents are agenting.
Right, so tags are meant to be versatile and they're meant to be kind of global. What we usually recommend, if you have data that you want to keep in one place and not have it be changeable, would be to use a custom field. Custom fields can be read only, basically means if it's empty, you can add information once, and then if you can't remove it and you can't change it unless you're an admin. So you can put some information like that in custom fields and use custom fields as filters, as conditions of ways of automating and making sure that you're only getting automations happening on certain things.
And you can make it a drop-down option, so that way
Yeah.
your agents aren't even typing it in, they just have the option of selecting sphere. You can do it that way, and you can utilize those as conditions
Exactly.
on your automation
Yeah,
system.
drop-down custom fields are a great option if you want to have specific things noted that you then are not changeable.
Thanks.
I just have a quick question on the stages part. Do you have to be like an owner or admin to get the tab for the stages to be able to add a new stage?
Yes.
Yes. The stage list is only editable by the owner of the account.
And not an admin, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Makes sense.
I think I'll throw this out there. We are planning on making the stage list visible to everybody so that you can reference it, but it's still only going to be editable by the owner.
And another thing, we always say is a lot of admins are the ones doing the primary amount of work in the CRM. So if at any point you as an admin are sitting there and you're talking with your team lead and you're like, look, I need full access. I don't want to have to log in using your account every time. Your team lead, the owner of the account, can reach out to us at Follow Up Boss and make a request, but the request has to come from them and say, hey, can you make my admin the owner? So that way they're able to go in and edit stuff. But again, that request has to come from the team lead or the owner of the account.
And the actual person.
As the owner,
Yeah, so like we have our team lead who manages most of it, but like we're growing. So if you wanted to make 2 people, so the 3 of us can manage the back end, so you have 3 people.
so no, 3 people can't be the owner, but what I know some of our larger teams do is they'll actually make the owner account not an account that anybody works out of besides back-end work. So the 3 admins will have access and they log in with that one for those purposes. And then they add an additional seat for their team lead to have their own login. Yeah.
For the smart list that you mentioned for the closing anniversary, people get dumped in there if you fill out the custom field under their profile, and then you said something about like having to enter 7 days. I was wondering if you could go back. Like, how do people get dumped into that smart list, I guess? Is it through the custom field on there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you guys have account owners have the ability to come in and edit your custom fields. You can add different custom fields in here, and as you can see, one of the ones we have is close date, or if you want to change the title to closing anniversary, okay? Where you'll find this is on the contact profile. So if I came into lead sample, I would just come down and find the close date. I'd put in their close date, and let's say I made their close date for tomorrow, okay? It's tomorrow, then we'd come over here and we can come and look at our closing anniversary smart list. And the 7 days I put right here is in the next 7 days. So again, you don't want it was less than, we want it in the next 7 days. And like I said, I would highly recommend calendar blocking time for this list because it takes a second to create a CMA, but it's so important, it's so easy, and so many of your past clients in Sphere have so much equity that they don't even realize. And maybe it's something where it's not even the conversation of, hey, do you want to sell? But hey, have you thought about a HELOC? And then investing in real estate. And what a safe investment real estate always is, because it's actual property. You actually own that commodity. So, yeah.
I wanted to go really quick, just kind of full circle.
take away what Katie and Jeremy really highlighted today, to make sure everyone kind of takes us away from this presentation. They really put a plan of attack into every one of their stages, right? They thought about, what do I want to do when something goes into a cold lead? And then they use follow-up boss to maybe add an automation or get those leads into a certain smart list. So that's the big takeaway that I think everyone should be leaving here with is, what's my plan of attack for every stage, right? And that's the really big thing. And then you go home and you put that plan of attack in place. So I just wanted to kind of add that.
And everybody in your system is a lead. Everybody's a lead. Yeah.
Following on that closing, is there a way when there is a deal to automate that close date?
Yes, the close date from deals works the same way. It can come up exactly the same in the calendar and in smart lists.
So if you don't change the deal and that date passes, it will automatically go to the close date?
No. You have to, it's a separate custom field, so you'd have to make the trigger of the automation either or. It's basically, it's the deal close date and then the standard close date, depending on what you're naming it. The deal close date is always called deal close date because it's a standard field, but whatever you name this, closing anniversary, home anniversary, whatever you want to call it, this can be also a trigger. So you can use both or you can use one. That gets a little bit muddled depending on what you want to accomplish.
We'll talk after, because I think, yeah. Okay. Last question before we have to wrap up here. Yeah.
I was just going to ask, who do we reach out to if we want those action plans imported into our system?
That's a great last question because we are going to give them to you. Automations are shareable by link. You can all share automations that you build, and people who you are here with today, if they have automations, they can share them with you. We're going to give you this information. We'll make sure that this slide gets out to everybody, and the automations down here at the bottom include the action plans that I created, as well as the automations.
So we'll make sure that this gets out to everybody, so that way you guys are able to implement this into your system. We also included some links regarding smart lists and all of that, but we also will be available here after to answer the questions that didn't get answered. And we appreciate all of you coming. It was a blast to get to talk with you guys and just share our excitement.